Peter? I've been thinking about free fall.
Oh, start that.
It's been on for a half hour.
I was thinking about free fall and thinking about navigating free fall. Doesn't seem to be any way you can navigate it. I mean, stuff happens, people come close to you, they go away, you can't control anything, it's always changing. I mean, it's sort of like there's as much exterior weather as there is interior weather at the same time. I just seeing that more clearly. That there's nothing you can really navigate. There's not much you can do.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing to navigate. There's no you to navigate.
Yeah.
I mean, what you call weather, there's nothing but. Weather is just the cascades of light that all this is made of, and it just has its own nature.
Right.
Swirls around as all appearances, and it's doing itself. So there's navigating and trying to control it, trying to steer it. It's just fantasy.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the fantasy that keeps us invested in trying to approach this energy as if it was situations.
Yeah.
And as if we were a person and all of these things, which keeps us in confusion.
Right.
Relating to it as these erroneous.
Right. It's something real.
Yeah, I mean it's profoundly real, but it's real radiant energy. It's not real situations.
Yeah, it's real in its own right, in its own way that it's real.
Yeah, it's realer. It's much more real than the situations we imagine, the circumstances we imagine, and the entities we imagine.
Yeah. I can just see supposedly I can just see myself trying to get something out of a situation, or trying to control a situation, or do something about a situation, or not do something about a situation, and it's just like you get frustrated and you go, oh, to hell with it, I'm not going to try to get anything out of this light show. It's what?
Because what's trying to control it
is
spontaneously appearing, and what you're trying to control is spontaneously appearing. So it's one system doing itself.
Yeah.
So there's no parts, there's no you to control it, and there's no circumstances to be controlled in actuality.
Yeah. I just noticed that as a bias that I have in a situation, and if I can't control it in a conventional way, I'll try to control it in an unconventional way.
Yeah, sure.
But both of those things aren't going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's the remains of attachment to delusion, of attachment to karma.
Yeah, right.
Wanting to get something, wanting to, change something or improve something.
Yeah.
But typically we've been in relating to this reality in that kind of a context all of our lives. So we're very used to that, we're very used to that mode of relating to it. And to shift gears and let go of that, for that to diminish is, typically takes a period of time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like you can't get any. I mean, you can't get what you want out of anything in a way.
Yeah, because there's no things.
Yeah, right.
There's no circumstance. There's nothing you could get.
Right.
It's like trying to get something in a dream. Even if you got it, it would just be a dream. It would be gone. It would be something else in the next instant. So what would you have gotten?
Yeah, right. The only sort of the consolation for here at the moment is it changes so fast that even if there's a moment of despair, it's going to change again to something else, some new scene.
Yeah.
It's just like changes so fast that nothing's really sticking around.
Yeah, there's nothing but change. There's nothing but change, and the change is instantaneous.
Right.
Every instant is just swirling away like a cloud.
Yeah.
there are no things, there's no environment, there's no beings,
Yeah.
there's no people.
Right. There's just this supposed you that's going, ah!
Yeah, and there's not that.
There's not even that. Yeah, right.
This is part of this.
That's,
Yeah.
that's so trippy.
So I see sort of the habitual way I try to go about things, but I see that that's not working, and then that itself is an expression of energy, and I mean it's so pathetic.
Well, it's not pathetic. It's just immature. It's based on an immature understanding of what this is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I sort of said to myself the other day, it'd be better just to look at this as an interesting piece of God's art.
Yeah,
That'd would be much better than trying to think of, well, what would happen here and what's about this.
Yeah. I mean, literally see it like the Northern Lights. It's like the Northern Lights, or like a beautiful sunset. It's just constantly changing. It comes in as this dynamic pattern. All of these amazing things present themselves and then disappear.
Right. And that's what we got. That's what's
That's
happening.
what there is. That's what there is. You can see.
Yeah. No, it hasn't. Right. Absolutely.
Could you speak about this idea of habit? We have this idea that habit is something that keeps recurring. And there really isn't any such thing as habit, but somehow the idea persists that there's habit.
There's no habit. There's just investment, and the investment creates tendency to focus on things as if they were recurring. And the investment is based on misunderstanding of what this is. We misunderstand what we are, we misunderstand what our circumstances are, and then we think there's habitual patterns of relating between those two that seem to have some degree of recurrence. And we are attached to it, which actually energizes the recurrence, energizes the tendency to see it that way, which blinds us to the fact that every instant, every circumstance is absolutely unique. There's no repetition, there's no actual habit, there's no actual repetition. But we see it that way because we're attached to the seeing. It's not that the circumstances are actually that way, but we're attached to seeing it that way. So attachment is to imaginary patterns, imaginary ways of seeing things.
Right. Just to make yourself feel safe or whatever, you know.
Well, it makes yourself feel like you exist.
Yeah, right.
Right, it's a mechanism for reinventing yourself every minute.
Yeah.
For reconstructing.
And habits are nice because A, they're easy, because you don't need to reinvent it from the ground up every
You just call it habit. You just call it habit every time.
And B, it has a kind of a self-reinforcing thing where, you know,
every time it comes up, you
it's
say,
familiar.
"Oh yeah, that's me. That's right.
Yeah,
that's me."
right.
You know,
That's
and in
something I do.
actuality, there is no familiarity.
Wow.
There's nothing. There is a profound familiarity in what this is, but there's no familiarity in circumstances because it's always completely unique.
Yeah, right.
You know, the nuance of what any instant feels like is always completely unique, completely unprecedented. I mean, just feel this moment. Feel what this moment feels like. This has never happened before.
Right.
You've never felt exactly the way you feel right now before. Never. And now it's already changed. It's already something else. And now it's already something else. And always absolutely unique, absolutely without precedent.
And that seems so huge.
Well, it's huge. It's a fact. I mean, it is huge in the sense that this is huge.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like there's like a smallness in comparison to what this moment can be or is.
It is. Smallness, we have to imagine smallness because it doesn't actually exist. Just like we imagine repetition because it doesn't actually exist.
Right.
We imagine limitation because it doesn't actually exist.
But this goes back to that thing that Leif was talking about the inner weather and the outer weather.
There is no weather.
There's no inner and outer. It's all just weather, and there's nothing but.
Which is a perspective of that needs to be kind of inculcated because we've been outculcated of it.
Well, it's not that you even need to inculcate a new perspective. It's just you just need to see what is actually true, and then what is untrue dissipates on its own because it doesn't have anything supporting it. It doesn't have any
but I mean, it seems like culcation has to happen of some sort.
Well, noticing has to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not a culcation. It's not like you need to, cultivate it or create it or hold it or, indoctrinate it. It's just let go of everything and look and see what you see. Look and see what this is. And
that's a scary thing to just let go of it.
Well, it may or may not be scary. In actuality, it isn't. In actuality, what this is your only actual security because it's where you actually are. And, imaginary security isn't real security, so clinging to fantasy for security, I mean, how secure is that going to be? It's like clinging to an imaginary lifeboat or an imaginary good luck charm, it's like...
But it goes back to this habit. It seems like there's this habit that wants to...
Seems is the operative word there.
Yeah.
Isn't.
But, it's all just investment.
Yeah, investment in some kind of security of the world that we've been taught.
Yeah. But it's all erroneous. It's misunderstanding.
That investment is a mechanism in itself, though. It's the mechanism that creates the label by which labels are. Yeah, it's the mechanism, right?
Yeah.
By which labels are created.
Yeah.
And every label adds a little more to the notion of I have a habit. I've been inculcated into this.
Well, all of that, all these definitions, because
it's a total house of cards.
Yeah, there's nothing there. It's all imaginary. It's all a misinterpretation.
It's a ghost. There's no such thing.
But then you walk outside of that, and it's like
How can we do
the immensity.
Huh?
I mean, there's just everything and there's nothing. There's everything and nothing.
Yeah, and the everything is the nothing, and the nothing is the everything, and it's not addressable in those kinds of terms.
Yeah.
It's only addressable as it is, which is not addressable at all in any kind of human terms. But you don't need to address it because you have it. Here it is. So you don't need to define it. You don't need to label it. You don't need to capture it. You don't need to explain it. It's just here it is. You rest in it because that's the only thing that's actually happening anyway.
So Peter, I really question my own desires about how I think the world should be or what I want to get out of it or whatever because it's like, what?
Yeah.
How could I?
Yeah. Yeah, look at it. I mean, it's just, it's unrealistic fantasy. It's not being realistic. It's not acknowledging what actually is the case and clinging to a fantastic version of things, of what this is. And then trying to live in that. But of course reality keeps impinging because there's no unreality.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of stupefying in a way. You're just like,
Good.
yeah. You just don't. I mean, I just find myself not wanting to. I see myself wanting to do something, and another part of me says, "No, don't do that. That's not going to get you anywhere." Hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah. But better than struggling with that is just see the weather, see the radiance, see the presence.
Right.
In other words, you don't need to extricate yourself from your habitual investments.
Right.
Just let that go. Let that take care of itself.
Yeah.
Don't try and stop it, but just see.
Yeah.
See the openness. See this amazing see what's doing itself, and then that will automatically extricate you from the investment. And that will automatically diminish the investment to a very ghostly
That's right.
condition.
Yeah. I mean, that's
So you
what-
don't need to struggle with it. Struggling with it actually gives it more steam and gives it more importance. It actually has no importance at all.
All right. Well, I mean, that seeing everything, seeing in a moment very clearly is what makes me want to go, oh, no, what you're thinking you want is not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, just go to seeing, and then it's obvious that it's not going to work, and it falls over. You just see, oh, that's not going to happen, you know. It's like, yeah, I want to be a billionaire, and I want to be the president, and I want to be a movie star, and I want to have a fire truck, and I want to have a race car, and it's like all these infantile fantasies.
Yeah, right.
And then you look, well, you know, is my life liable to really go that way? You know,
Yeah.
is that realistic? And then you look, well, you know, every day just sort of happens and unfolds
Yeah.
in these astounding, infinite, fractal patterns,
Yeah.
and it goes where it's going. And right at the moment, presidency doesn't seem to be
Getting
the next step.
Yeah, fire trucks.
I'm way closer to the fire truck.
You never know, but
That's true.
Could happen.
Could be a Tonka fire truck.
Maybe VP, but you know.
Yeah, right.
yeah, but always go to what is. Don't fight with what isn't.
Right.
Just let that be. Let that. Don't even worry about it. Just let it have its life, and just turn to the light. Turn to the energy.
Right.
Go to the energy, and it's like when you go in a dark room, you don't need to fight with the darkness. Just turn on the light, and the darkness just takes care of itself.
Right. Yeah.
So go to the light. Go to the energy,
Yeah.
and in that context, it reveals what it is, and it reveals that these unrealistic, silly ways of looking at it just are not true. It reveals it. It's self-evident.
Right.
And in that context, it just falls away as having any importance or any investment in that kind of a way of relating to this falls away.
Right.
Because there's no point in it. It's just a lot of effort for fantasy. You know, it's a lot of effort with no payoff, and it's an annoying game to play.
Yeah. Right.
It's like imagine a board game that you can't win. You know, you're always going to lose,
Yeah.
and it's hard to play,
Yeah.
and it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and you can't make it out clearly. So you're sitting there like, oh, do I want to play this game? You know, I don't think so. I'm just going to hang out.
And you don't actually have a piece to move around the board.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, the whole premise of our so-called human life is an absurdity. It's unpleasant. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It has little in the way of beauty. It has little in the way of victory. It has little in the way of fulfillment, of nourishment, and all the nourishment and fulfillment and victory it has is actually
In the whole.
in reality, and it just lets little bits of it shine through.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
let go of that and come to the radiant presence, and it's all there. It's all victory.
Right.
It's all fulfillment. It's all nourishment. It's all openness. There's no frustration.
Right.
There's no failure.
Right. Yeah.
Damn.
It's just a non-stop
You did that.
beauty, non-stop fullness.
Well, it's sort of like a lot of times. I mean, I experience sort of very, very strong moods, and
Right.
it feels like a weight on me, or so like a toothache or something. You know, I mean, it
Yeah.
has a very strong presence, and you're like, what?
Yeah, but go to the energy, because
Right.
moods are made of investment partially, but it's investment piggybacking on actual present energy.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's kind of like if you eat a hot dog before bed, then you have disturbed dreams.
Yeah.
The disturbance is actually in the energy of your metabolism, but the narration of the disturbed dream is piggybacking on the actual energy present, which is the metabolism. So likewise, moods come in because there's constant flavors ebbing and flowing, non-stop. And the very nature of what this is, it's just, I mean, every instant there's just these astounding rainbow of vibes and flavors and just nuances, and they're in their natural condition. They're open and undefinable, but present and pregnant with quality. And what the psychology does, what the investment does, is seizes on these things, attaches them to a narrative, and says, "Oh, there's some kind of strong energy present. I must be depressed, and I'm depressed about such and such because of such and such." And all of a sudden, you've got a soap opera going, and it's energized by this groundswell of energy. But the groundswell of energy actually has absolutely nothing to do with the narration. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It's just a spontaneous energy event. It's like solar flares or something.
Right. Yeah.
And the very nature of the energy is it's turbulent, it's radiant, it has tides, it has current, it has ebbs and flows. It's constantly changing. It's very, very dynamic. Every instant we're in a different, sort of melange of flavors and nuances, and it's constantly morphing and constantly, turning on itself and flowing through itself and all this kind of thing.
Right.
But it doesn't mean doesn't relate to anything except itself. All that actually it is just this radiant energy, and it's the nature of it that it should be so.
Right.
But the investment attaches a narrative to it and says, "Oh, I'm feeling a certain way, so I must be happy, and I'm probably happy because of such and such and such." And all of a sudden, you've got a whole. It's like spinning a dream out of just some inherent little intangible mood that happens to be showing up.
Yeah. Right. I mean, sometimes I get a mood, an intangible mood, and then I try to do something about it to get away from it. I try to.
Sure. But again, that's objectifying it. That's attaching it to a narrative and believing it has something to do with some objective circumstance.
Yeah.
That there's something you can get away from. That there's a you that can get away from it.
Yeah.
And none of that is actually true.
It's better just to leave it alone and just stay.
It's just energies in space.
Yeah, energies in space, right? Just
you're
leave it
like
alone.
what you are. You're like an astronomer looking with this telescope at this vast galaxy. Just energies flying around, and all you can do is look. It's not like the astronomer looking at the galaxy can do anything about it. You can, you can just watch it, and that's our actual situation. These energies are just wafting through, and you can't do anything about them in reality. The most you can do about them is imagine you're doing something about them, which is exactly what happens with all this investment, all of this psychologizing, all of this pretending that there's a narrative and the circumstances and a life and a history and problems and solutions and all of this stuff, none of which actually exists. They're all free associated. It's just like looking at clouds and say, "Oh, that cloud looks like a car. That cloud looks like an elk. That cloud looks like a butterfly. That cloud looks like a boat." Or
Yeah.
Because there's none of those things there. It's just clouds.
Right.
But we free associate. The consciousness can easily free associate these things on there. And if you get too attached to it, you forget that it's just a cloud and you think you're seeing something. And that's exactly like this. This energy we're seeing is just a rainbow. All you've ever seen, all you've ever experienced is a rainbow. There's no things here. There's no circumstance. But the consciousness is powerful, and the rainbow is ambiguous enough that you can look at it and say, "Oh gosh, it looks kind of almost as if it was a room. Almost as if there were like human beings in the room. Almost as if they were sitting talking to each other. Almost as if there were lights. Almost as if there was a wooden floor. Almost as if there was chairs." And so you get this viable description, just like looking at the clouds and saying, "Wow, that really looks like a car." Or look at that, this is kind of like a guy floating on his back.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's a cloud.
Right. Yeah.
And likewise, none of those things are here. There's nothing here. There's literally nothing here. This is not poetry or some vague allusion to some mystical something. This is the literal fact, the literal truth. There is nothing here. There's nothing here whatsoever but absolute mysterious infinite energies wafting through absolute mysterious infinite consciousness.
Yeah, it's like a rainbow in the sense that it's just an appearance. It's not actually there.
Yeah. It's an appearance. It's very detailed and complex, but you can never find it. You can't get a hold of it.
Right.
You can't pin it down. It's like a mirage.
Right.
It's present. It has presence, but it has no substance. because its very nature is to be constantly disappearing, to be constantly morphing.
Right.
But that's what this actually is. And that being the case, you can see that, because it actually is that. You know, and this isn't like a metaphor or poetry. It's literally this astounding, mysteriously, impossibly present energy.
I mean, no wonder other people seem frustrated. You're not going to get a handle on this. I mean, I'm surprised things seem to persist the way they do.
Yeah, but they persist to the extent they do through imagination, through fantasy. In fact, nothing persists at all. Everything's completely different. It's an entirely different world now.
Persistence is fantasy too.
Yeah,
right.
it's an entirely different world now than it was 50 years ago. It's an entirely different world now than it was 10 years ago. It's an entirely different world now than it was 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And none of those worlds are ever going to come again. Every one of those instances is completely gone, without a trace, just nowhere to be found. And the present moment is already gone. It's nowhere to be found.
Yeah. Right.
Because its very nature is to be constantly disappearing.
That is so strange.
Yeah, but it's actually not strange. It's actually normalcy.
Yeah, right.
The strangeness is how effortlessly consciousness manufactures misinterpretations of that, manufactures permanency, manufactures recurrence, manufactures all this stability and all of this, consequence through time, when there's absolutely no evidence for any of that stuff.
That's the strange part, right?
That's right.
The overlay on everything.
Yeah.
When you say there's absolutely no evidence, I think a lot of people would give you a good argument about that one.
I could knock them down. I'd put them on their butts without even trying.
You want to try?
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but it's based on facts that are not facts.
Fantasy.
It's based on fantasies.
But when you're coming from a point of view, and I've done this so many times in my life, of all that investment, if you've been banking on that investment and in that investment, and if you go to Bank of America, then it's Wells Fargo, then it's some other bank, and it's all investment.
Right.
And those are the options that you think are there.
Right.
Then you don't get this other thing.
That's right. If you want to play the human game, you're going to be going into fantasy. You're going to be going into investment, because that's what that game is made of. That's what the game board's made of, and the pieces are made of, and the rules are made of. But it's all a game. It's all fantasy. It's all pretense.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's a game you can't win. It's a game that's not even fun to play. And you're a sucker if you play it, basically. And it's a question of getting that, of seeing, why am I doing this exactly? It's no fun. It's a lot of work. You can't win. So
what?
So you have that, or you have effortless fullness, completeness, no loss, no lack,
No effort.
absolutely spontaneous, eternal, no death, no suffering. So you make the call.
Now about this investment. It's kind of like the Monty Python where he goes to the hat thing.
Most people would agree with you.
Yeah.
Manifestly.
Wow.
Yeah. Because there is present in a frame of consciousness no other choice.
Yeah. Sure. If all you can see is that reality, and you take it.
That's all most people see in
credulously.
their entire lives. 98% of the population.
Well, that's all they think. That's all they let themselves see.
Yeah.
That's all they think they see. Everyone
That's all
has
they've been
this-
taught.
Everyone's seeing reality all the time,
Right.
Not even
but
that.
but they write it off as, I'm spacing out, or I really where was I there, or wow, that was amazing.
But if you're born in the world of investment in things in this world, there's very few choices of that.
Yeah, well, we live in a dark age. There's always infinite choice, but it's down to karma. You can't avail yourself of those choices unless you can. and you can't choose to avail yourself of those choices.
Well, that's-
So when karma comes, that you notice, hey, wait a minute, there's something else going on here. There might be some alternative. Something's weird. You know, when that happens, that's opportunity. That's wow. There's a door standing open here. Let me kind of peek through the crack and see what's on the other side. This is kind of interesting. You know, you're not just locked in a box forever.
And it's so otherworldly. It is so different. It is so mammoth. It is so everything.
Yeah, it's completely contrary to the human worldview.
Yeah, it's like, and it does have all of that, and then you get a sense of it and a taste of it, but there's still that other whole momentum.
Right. That's what spiritual unfoldment. That's how it works.
So you got this tug and pull of all that momentum versus this new, like, and you get it, but then you morph to don't get it, and you go through this get it, not get it thing.
Yeah. It's just like any process of maturation. You know, when you're a kid, you're down in the sandbox playing with model trucks, going run, 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 right?
Yeah.
And then at some point you're like, you do something else. You go fishing or something, and it's like, oh, this is there's something here. This is neat. But then you go back in the sandbox and play. But sooner or later, the day will come. You'll keep going back to the sandbox every once in a while. But sooner or later, the day will come where you don't go back to the sandbox. There's just nothing there for you, and you'd much rather be, talking to girls or, riding a bike. I don't know what, But these kinds of transitions happen spontaneously through an inward process of growth. Just like when an apple tree flowers and bears fruit, it happens spontaneously, gradually, as an inward flowering. And likewise, our process of maturation does that too. It's pointless to take a 6-year-old and say, okay, be a teenager. It's not going to happen. It has to come genuinely. And likewise, spiritual unfoldment comes genuinely, comes karmically. And you reach a certain point, one eventually, or may reach a certain point where all of a sudden you begin to notice, wow, there's something going on here it's a whole different thing. And all of a sudden the sandbox that you've been living your whole life as is just like, it's only one of the options, and it's supposed to be the only option. To the 6-year-old, the sandbox is the only option. But eventually it gets, well, wow, I can do this other stuff, and then I can go back to the sandbox, and eventually you don't go back.
Eventually the sandbox gets boring.
So that makes time the factor. But then what does time exist though?
No, but you're looking at it theoretically as opposed to pragmatically. Spiritual unfoldment is leaving illusion. It's essentially leaving time. But you're in time until you've left it. So the process of leaving time takes place within time.
So it's not over till it's over.
Yeah.
It makes me want to grab a big club or something and just smash time.
Yeah, but do that.
Feel aggressive.
But it's simpler than that. You don't need to go to all that effort. You can just look and see that time doesn't exist, and then you don't need to go to the trouble of smashing.
That's where I started from.
And then you stepped out of time, which is going to the finish line, and all of a sudden you're not in the game anymore. You're not in the sandbox. You're not in a realm where notions of time are relevant, or meaningful, or accurate.
I've always sided with the idea that the kid in the sandbox going room, room, room could at this moment wake up. I'm mixing metaphors, but
It can. But it won't unless it does. You can't plan or contrive these things, because again, it's a inner flowering, not an external imposition. And even if it is an external imposition, that is an inner flowering. That's a karmic thing.
This is reminding me of one teacher, Christian, in fact, said a fruit that ripens, they can be forced to ripen out of season, but they're not as sweet as the one that ripens in season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, that's nice. That's nicely poetic.
Yeah.
But I think that you can't. Everyone's karma is unique, and so everyone's path of unfoldment is unique. And some people are much more quick than others. Some people are much more gradual than others. Some people require a lot of prodding from outside. Some people, it's more of a much more internalized. You know, I mean, you can any qualities you would try to analyze it in terms of. Everyone's different, and it comes through what people are inherent. It's through the energy system that you actually are. It's nature, i.e., your karma, and it works the way it works, and your unfoldment will conform to that because it's a process. It's an inherent process, and you can't contrive your nature. You can't choose your nature.
You can't hustle it along or stave it off.
Yes, you can hustle along if it's your nature to be able to hustle along.
But you can't artificially do it.
No,
If it's your nature to artificially do it, you can't. There's no rules, but it has to be your nature. In other words, you can cheat.
I mean, that's
you
how
can
I
cheat
was
and take shortcuts.
That's how I was using artificial.
Yes, you can cheat and take shortcuts if it's your nature to be able to cheat and take shortcuts.
It isn't.
But that doesn't mean I can go to someone else and say, okay, let's cheat and take shortcuts. If it's not your nature to be able to cheat and take shortcuts, you can't. You can definitely cheat. You can definitely just cut in line, go to the front of the line, and cross the finish line. That's doable if it's doable for you. It's not that there's no objective. In other words, there's no objective conditions. The jump from delusion to realization is absolutely zero space, zero time. There's no transition that needs to be made, and yet, in terms of looking at it process-wise, it is a transition that is inherent in the nature of the energy system that's making that transition, which can be like that, or it can be 50,000 lifetimes or whatever. Who knows?
Process-wise is like dealing these cards of resonant modes out, isn't it?
Yeah. And process-wise, it depends on the energy system that you are to the degree that you are entrapped by process. If your energy system is a very process-oriented energy system, then your process will be very much of a process. If your energy system is such that you can cheat, you have meta cards that you can deal, you can trump things, and all of a sudden, bang, your process can get short-circuited, and you can do wonders. But you can't. But that can't be contrived.
It isn't doing wonders.
That can't be contrived.
You're just a born cheater, or you're not.
Yeah. You're born, or you could say you're a virtuoso, a born prodigy, or you're not, or you're a born virtuoso, or you're not, or you have talent in one area, or you're by nature conservative and plodding and slow, or whatever. And no one is any one thing exclusively. Everyone is a melange of astounding qualities, and which comes together in astounding ways. So everyone has tricks. Everyone has their own versions of cheats. That it's a matter of stumbling on what they are and learning to take advantage of them.
And what we're really talking about, though, is belief, is it not? I mean, some people believe in this soul.
No, we're not talking about belief.
Who are these
We're
people?
talking about the actual energy system that you actually are, that your universe is, let's say. Your universe has a nature, just like, the Milky Way has a nature and the Andromeda Galaxy has a nature. They're different. You can look at them in the telescope and they look different. They have different, everything about them's different. They're different sizes, they're different speeds, they're different radiances, they're different everything. And so they have different modes, behavioral modes, functional modes. Although it's complex and not simple, because they'll have multiple modes, and some of the modes will be in conflict, and some of the modes will be able to trump other modes, and so on and so forth. It's like with people's personalities. I mean, you can tell with someone's personality. We all have all these different characteristics, and some of our characteristics are one way, and others of our characteristics are like bang, whatever. And everyone's completely unique. And this is a reality of what you actually are, what you actually are actually is. And it also shows up in what you are not, but you think you are, i.e. your personality and your imagined karma and your imagined life and your imagined circumstances. Of course, that is extrapolated from and based on the reality, the actual energy system.
I had this image of a really ruthless guy, who puts forth the image of a really nice guy, but the ruthless thing just keeps coming through.
Sure. Yes.
And wants to just knock the hell out of him.
Yeah, some people are like that. People can come in any these energy systems can be in any kind of guise imaginable. I mean, and from the spiritual point of view, there are certain things which are luckier to have than other things. But you can't define it categorically or formulaically because everyone is so unique. But for example, people that are more, you can't categorize it, so there's no point in it. But the trick is to learn what your actual resources are, to intuit what your actual energy system is, and take maximal advantage of your most, shortcutting or cheating, or
Your abilities.
your abilities. Yeah, your abilities to, can I cut in line? Can I ignore the rules here and go up here? How much am I gullible and plodding and having to sit back, or can I thumb my nose at the whole process and just go over there, or whatever. I mean, I'm just, there's infinite possibilities, so these are just absurd examples. But the trick is to not take things at face value, not gullibly think, the spiritual path is like this, and I have to do this, and take that and use what you can, but discard anything that seems to be working against you, and see if you can contrive something that was working for you. And you'll stumble on your own short path sort of resources, your own shortcuts, your own ways of accelerating the process.
I also see a vision of a multitude of sheep, and then a lion coming by and trying to convince them that they're not sheep.
Sure.
But they say, no, we're sheep. I'm a sheep.
Sure. Or the famous ugly duckling,
Oh, yeah.
Or there's another one where there's another children's story or fable where there's literally a lion raised by sheep and thinks it's a sheep or something. So again, it's a matter of, finding our lionness, finding our inner resources that are most powerful, most beneficial in terms of advancing manifesting our own power and our own, most radical nature, most radical functional expression, rather than going through channels and going to the more conservative power portions of our energy that are not so engaged, that are not so functional, that are not,
They're more rational.
Huh?
other modes that are more rational.
Perhaps more rational, yeah.
That's
Taking advantage of
facts.
Yeah, availing yourself of the irrational, availing yourself of, whatever. It can be anything, there's no way to formalize it. There's no formula of it, or, there's no scale where you can say this is better and this is worse. It's all, because everyone's a one-off, everyone's an absolutely unique energy situation. It's a matter of stumbling on your own combinations that enable you to shoot off somewhere, discovering your cities, discovering your talents, discovering your prodigyness in whatever way it shows up. And everyone has some degree of that in some weird area, and the trick is to find it and to employ it in some in its an appropriate area where you can actually make spiritual use of it. And anything is spiritually useful, potentially, if you have the art and the artifice to engage it. Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. Finding your inner chutzpah. Technical term.
You know, it almost sounds like what you're saying is.
Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
No, you can talk. I can be able to hear you while I do my talk.
All right.
You were going to say?
Well, what I was going to say is it sounds like what he's saying is that the conservative part of us, it's the, let's just use the lion and sheep thing, as the sheep is the one, is the mechanism that keeps repeating, labeling things and calling, oh God, this is a bad habit I have, and then so, or oh gosh, this energy's weird, why am I feeling this way? And then that's a mechanism for staying in the fantasy. And so the lion is the one that sort of is the rebel, is the one that sort of gets fed up with the being more, using a more conservative sheep approach, and
but you can't even formalize it that far because because conservatism can be a very powerful force too if you use it artfully, and radicalism can be.
No,
what do you mean?
What I meant, the conservative is the part that keeps doing things the way they've been being done. In other words, just continuing to believe that, oh, this is just a habit. It'll wear itself out. If my karma is any good, all those repetitive mechanisms, or apparently repetitive, which aren't really. It's the believing in that. Conservatives are the believing in the labeling. I'm not putting very well. That's okay.
There's a sentence, we the sheep all hold these truths to be self-evident.
There's what?
We the sheep all hold these truths to be self-evident. Somebody comes by and knocks on the door and says, now, prove this isn't real.
It is real. It's just not a table.
Not just
Those are the wrong.
You could almost bet that what you keep telling yourself is wrong.
Well, yeah. Anything you think is not true. Anything you think is inaccurate. Because thought cannot capture reality.
Can reality capture reality?
Yes. Reality
That's
alone can
okay.
capture reality through identity.
But it's not.
And that's why spiritual realization is possible. Because you are actually reality. So you can know reality.
Right.
You have the tools. But reality alone can capture, can understand, can approach, can know reality.
Understand?
Concepts can. Huh? Well, these words aren't true in themselves. Yes, understand in the sense of what the true understanding consists of, not some verbal or defined understanding. An actual understanding is being. It's through identity. You can understand identity. You can understand reality because you are reality. You can know reality because you are reality. But the understanding and the knowing is an understanding of identity and a knowing of identity. You know through being. You understand yourself by being yourself.
Right.
Not by describing it or narrating it. You understand it by being it. You understand yourself intimately because you are yourself. And likewise, you are actually reality, so you can understand reality intimately.
But even putting it as understanding is kind of a misnomer because...
Well, putting it as anything is a misnomer. But again, the actual situation doesn't conform to definition. The word is just referring to an actual condition. And the actual understanding completely transcends any definition of the word understanding.
Or later
Right.
on, right.
Which is the trick.
Hmm?
Which is the trick.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was talking to my sister, the doctor, and I was explaining some of this, and then today I thought, wow, that must have really sounded crazy, you know? So don't try this at home.
Or the doctor's office.
Yeah. I mean, she was really nice and liked me, so she was like, yeah, that's interesting. Don't attempt any of this on the outside.
Just, you were done talking, she's going,
Yeah,
Oh, baby.
hell is going
I
on
guys got
today?
around the bed.
My poor brother. What's the matter with him?
That was hilarious.
Peter, one of the things that I've recently noticed about my energy system is that I notice myself going into thought and I just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that stopping is, but I stop. And it feels like, at least my energy system is just always in an autopilot, and there's nothing I can do nothing I can do in my imagination or thought to affect how it's moving through space.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that's what it feels like, right?
Sure. Absolutely. It's God's doing all this. God does everything. And when you see that, you're off the hook. You're completely off the hook. It's like, oh, whatever happens will happen.
Yeah. I mean,
And all of a sudden there's no problems anymore.
yeah.
Because even if there's big disasters and things fall apart, God's doing it. So it's,
Yeah, it feels really strange.
yeah. Well, you get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I still see myself going through sensations and pressure and all that, but
Sure.
I look at it, but it still feels really strange
Yeah.
and kind of weird.
Well, it is strange, and it is weird inherently because it's infinite and it's inherently ambiguous. It's inherently indeterminate, which is it's not strange in itself, but it's very strange from any kind of human terms, because we're used to thinking things are things and they're cut and dried and solid and somehow definable. But when you see this flow that's doing itself, and you see that it not only is it doing itself, but it's what it consists of is very, 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 very peculiar. There's no things. You can't find anything. You can't define anything. And yet everything is very present, very much itself. I mean, the whole thing is just in human terms, is very bizarre.
Yeah, and the other thing is I also see my energy, or maybe I noticed my energy bouncing off of other energy systems. And I didn't used to see that before, but now I'm actually seeing,
Yeah.
kind of feeling that.
Yeah. But it's not actually your energy and other energy. The whole melange is like an unfoldment of your karma. So the other energies are actually your energy, and the bouncing off is actually your energy too. Kind of like when you're dreaming, you can get in a situation and you're interacting with other people or something, but the other people are actually you. They're actually, because you're dreaming them, right? Yeah. So they're actually you, and so the interaction and the person and the whole, all these different energy systems are actually your energy system, your karma, your pattern of what you are, just being displayed.
Yeah.
I mean, another way to understand that is no one else whatsoever experiences the bouncing off that you do.
Mm.
They're unique to you. No one else is in your shoes. No one else experiences those particular interactions from your point of view. And so the whole thing is your movie. It's the Susan show.
It's
right?
my consciousness.
Yeah, it's your consciousness. It's your dream. It's your karma unfolding. So everything that happens in it is absolutely unique to you. And it's all doing itself. And it's all taking you to liberation, because that's where everything goes. So so not only can you feel on autopilot, but if you can notice it, you can feel a great joy in the sense that where it's going is to itself. It's going to self-realization. It's going to find itself, and what it finds when it finds itself will be very beautiful.
Yes.
And it is finding itself with every interaction, with every event. It's like it's like polishing. It's like sharpening a knife on a stone. You know, every grinding, the knife gets sharper, and every grinding, the knife gets sharper. Likewise, as we go through these events, they're like sharpening a knife, or like a rock in a rock tumbler. You know how rocks get polished. You know, they just knock around, but all that knocking eventually, every knock, it polishes the rock, and eventually you have this beautiful shiny rock generated by all this knocking around. So you can take real pleasure
A very apt analogy.
in the trials and tribulations of life, because they are actually the very process of the unfoldment.
That's a good one.
But I think a big thing is, at least for me, is not getting hijacked by thought.
Yeah, but again, this is something that comes on its own. You know, as you continue going through this process, you begin to notice that, and you notice more and more, and you notice the thoughts coming, and you notice that thought is just an energy happening, and you notice it's all fantasy, and you notice that the energy interactions are all proceeding on their own anyway, and so the investment in the importance of thought, or not, the investment in the importance of resisting thought, of not getting caught up in thought even, just diminishes. Because thought turns out to be just another spontaneously present energy. It's not really your problem. Whether there's thought there or not, you're not actually doing it. And even whether you get caught up or not, you're not even doing that. So so you're completely off the hook.
It's effortless.
Yeah, it truly is. And all you have to do is notice that, because it actually is that. It actually is effortless. Because you're not doing any of it. You don't sit there and say, I think I'm going to get caught up in thought. And I'm in the mood to get caught up in thought. It just happens, right? Thought just happens. Or noticing just happens. And then you see the thought, and you see yourself getting caught up, and you see, gosh, this is silly. I don't need to get caught up in this. And that just happens. So every aspect of it just happens. So in what way is it your fault? In what way does it have anything to do with you?
Yeah, even the identification just happens.
Yeah. And then noticing happens, and then fading away of identification happens, and it's all doing itself. It's discovering itself. And you don't have to do anything. Kind of nice.
Kick back, have a brewski.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, it's Miller time.
I think it's IPA time.
Yes. Speaking of which, why don't we knock off for 5 minutes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That dessert is ready.
Okay.
Is that food back too?
Yeah.
This is one of the meetings we walk around the town. It's like, knock around. Just see, for a rock and roll song to go with this one. Knock around. Oh, no. Well, that's my sock. I don't have my sock. So the fabrics are dry, and these are in plastic bags. My feet are washable. And what I need is a rag for the floor. All I need is a rag for the floor. But my feet are washable. I don't mind that. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, I want to get something with soap on it, though. For her sake. Something underneath. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's in there. Good thing I only have a tiny bit on there. The basket, I'll just rinse it off when I get home.
Well, knocking around there, Lulu. Yeah.
I know! Isn't that great? Not. That was silly. Well, I'll tie-dye these socks. Oh, thank you. Well, you know what? If one of them had a little soapiness on it, would be good. Just to get it off, the stickiness off the floor, I think. Oh yeah, the basket. Yeah, the basket got a little in it, but I can clean that when I get home. And most of the stuff in there is either fabric I can wash, or all the knitting was.
Are we making a mess here?
No,
Yeah,
no, we're discussing.
we are, as in the royal we.
We've heard that this.
I can help out.
Try not to. I do a very thorough job of myself.
I'm really good.
You know what, Dean? Put a little soap on that one. Or you know what, you have something like a little Fantastic or something? I don't know. I just don't want the floor to get sticky.
Oh, it's good.
Oh, and there's some
The standard
jaggery.
berry pie.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's my commentary on that one. That's gonna get washed.
You genteel woman, you.
I know,
How you doing?
I just, thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, and I believe that on the floor so it doesn't get on the front. Okay, what do you got there, sir? Yeah? I'm gonna go stick my foot in the tub.
There's something to chop to shreds?
Say what? Oh. Say what?
You always wash the floor between acts.
Okay, that's that. That's
Wipe up the blood.
there. Usually very nice and tidy. What happened with that?
Starting gate.
Well, the finish line is the starting gate. Yeah.
All right. Now I'm gonna stick my foot in the tub.
Try.
I'm gonna stick my foot in your tub. If that's okay.
There's no point in doing it.
With my left foot.
No, there's no point in not doing anything either. Because doing something isn't really doing something, and not doing something isn't really not doing something. So it's just something else entirely.
I know. Don't listen to this guru talk. What have you... Matt, no, Matt.
Guru speak.
Guru speak.
Guru speak, man. That is bad stuff.
Don't try to repeat it.
Right. Don't try this at home is absolutely...
Lily's in Australia. She says hi to everyone.
Oh, Dave back.
Oh, hi Lily, you're here.
Is she watching?
It must
Yes,
be, I don't know what time it is over there. Probably afternoon or something. Or morning.
Hey, Lily. The sound too, right?
Yeah, sure. Jeff might be on. Hi Jeff and Beth if you're there too. Anyone else that's online?
So that has its own sound.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're hearing everything.
Sorry for that first half hour. It's a little dull.
Maybe people like to watch us either.
Lily has a question.
Okay.
Is there a variation in noticing, in quality of in noticing? Is there a variation of quality in noticing?
No. There's no variation in quality of noticing, but there's a variation in the degree to which noticing is efficacious. In other words, you can have noticing that wham, does a lot, or you can have noticing that's just kind of an event all noticing will have an effect, but noticing, maybe have more or less effect depending on how ready you are for an effect to be happening. Kind of. I'd like to just hand out tubs of Haagen-Dazs.
Right.
Only the favored few.
Yeah, it turned out pretty good this time. I thought, oh, I make the same thing every time and people get sick of it.
We'll let you know.
You're okay.
Evidently, there's no such thing.
Well, it's apple season, so there's plenty of apples.
And it's got oil in it too? What are you having
Butter.
here? Butter.
High class butter.
Nice. Anything worth doing is worth doing well.
Yeah, that's right.
You keep us up in the garage? Yes, you can leave it anywhere around after you get up.
You're fine. You did a good job.
Well, I'm the instructors.
You've done this before.
Just listen to you.
Oh, that's good. Good. Let's see what damage I did in here. Not too much.
So coffee or what?
A little chai.
Oh,
Everything's in bags in here, so. And Suzanne got my basket. Yeah, so that was nice of her.
Can I call you, leave you up for a while? I'll call you in later, in about an hour. Okay, great. Bye. Oh, fantastic.
He's a little
Tell her happy birthday.
Alright. Really exciting in life. Or not. Perfectly not.
I have a t-shirt from Kona, Hawaii.
What's
It was
that?
dipped in coffee.
You did
I have
what?
a T-shirt from Kona, Hawaii, or Kona, Hawaii.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
dipped in coffee.
To give it that color.
Yeah, so
On purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're dying.
See? I'm so clever then. So oats. Oats.
Oh,
Chai.
brown sugar, flour,
And Suzanne, Dean helped me out.
butter.
In my basket on the floor. And on my foot.
That's it.
I have the same.
All those things are pretty organic. Those are apples. Some of these tree, ham's tree. Blueberries are organic. Take some with you. Feel free.
Flour.
You can't go wrong there, but I didn't put in too much butter, so don't worry.
And the pictures that I was
We did that really Peruga butter or whatever, that was fine. You have some, but my house it's easier than polenta.
Does polenta ever go wrong?
No.
I think we've hit 5 minutes.
I think so.
Peter, can you say a few more things about time? As I understand it, in the noticing, when we're noticing, there's no time, and when we're caught up in identification, imagination, there is time.
Well, you could say that. It's not that there's no time, it's that when you're noticing, you discover what time really is, which is not what we think it is. Time is not history. Time is what we call the being, or what you could say is the being of the present moment. Mm-hmm. But the way in which the present moment is very subtle and very interesting. It's not a simple, inert thing. It's a very strange, simultaneous coming into being and disappearing, where the coming into being is the disappearing. So, and when we're noticing, we see this. So time is a very strange condition. So it's not that there's no time, it's that we notice what time actually is, the context in which time actually is, and with a sense of historical time where there's a narrative and there are things that happened a while ago and things that are going to happen in a while, and they're all sort of connected and strung together, is let go of as being simplistic, because in noticing we see that that's not the case. In noticing, reality is seen to be constantly inventing itself in the instant and disappear and uninventing itself in the instant.
So then, reality is a timeless condition.
Well, any time there is exists in reality, but time isn't what we think it is. It's timeless in terms of a simplistic sense of time. A simplistic sense of time with a past, present, and future.
Okay.
What time really is something very subtle and much different than any idea of it can be. And the same applies to space. In noticing, we discover the eternal present, because naturally there's nothing but the present. It's always now, and so now is eternal. It's never not now. And in relation to now, there's no past and no future. You can't find any past and future; they're fantasies. Now is the concrete fact.
So when we think about time, like we do in human terms or human concepts, that's all imaginary and fantasy, not real.
Yeah. Because the actual condition of the time is in, what time actually is, can't be thought.
Yeah.
It can't be captured in thought. It can't be described, it can't be defined. You can say things about it that sort of invite you to look at it more closely, but what you say ends up being very paradoxical and sounds like gibberish and sounds very illogical. But you don't need to describe it, because you have the real thing right here, so you can look and see. You can see what it is, and that's noticing, seeing what it is.
Seems like time is being on a surfboard, where the wave is going away and it's coming behind you and it's going away and it's coming all at the same time, and you're balanced at this one point.
Sure. I would say pretty much like that, except there's no wave.
So I just went through this phase of feeling an incredible vibrancy of the moment. Maybe 10 seconds, maybe 5. And then having all this stuff come up about it. Oh yeah, here's what I could say about that, here's what I could say about that, here's what I could say about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, oh, I don't have it anymore. And so it's, like just on to the next thing. And it's very trippy.
It is. It's very trippy. It's the nature of mind to generate these narratives sometimes. But as you become more proficient at noticing, you'll discover that these narratives don't actually block or stop. I mean, the vibrant presence of time is obviously still here. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go anywhere. And if you find yourself getting distracted by these narratives, you may not be noticing it, but it's not that it's gone away. You're just experiencing it in a different guise. You're experiencing it as the narratives, because the narratives are not other than the vibrant presence of time. So to speak. There's there's an interesting aspect in noticing, which is attention. I guess I could say our attention moves around more or less wildly. Mm-hmm. And typically when we are in more invested in confusion and delusion, the attention is kind of like maybe a spotlight in a very dark room, and it's moving around, and all it sees is what it happens to rest on. So it rests on that cup, and it sees that cup, and it rests on that chair, and so on and so forth. So when you're thinking, you go to the thought. When you're looking at someone, you go to the vision of looking at them, and when you're feeling something, you go to the sensation. And there's a kind of a tunnel vision moving around,
and very little reference to the flow of that whole thing.
Well, there's not, in the sense of context, yes. And in one sense, one way of describing noticing is discovering the open-endedness and also the range of attention. That attention can zoom in, but it can also zoom out. You can have your attention on the full field of your experience, all at once. Or you can zoom in, or you can have it on sort of several portions, and so there's this zooming out and zooming in. And when you become proficient at this through what I've been calling noticing, eventually you get what this is. You get that it's all the same thing. Whether you're zoomed in or zoomed out or looking over here, you're actually looking at exactly the same thing. And that's what liberation looks like, when it doesn't matter where the attention goes. You're not gaining anything or losing anything, because it's all reality. It's always reality, because there's nothing else to see. It's impossible to see anything other than reality. And then you go to a thought, no problem, you're seeing reality. You go to the miraculous nature of time, no problem, you're seeing reality. You go to a TV show, no problem, you're seeing reality. Because that's what there really is. But to get that that's what there really is, typically involves going through this process of educating ourselves or becoming more familiar with the full range of attention to discover the sort of the meta system, to discover sort of the context that noticing happens in. Because noticing in ignorance tends to be this kind of tunnel vision that tends to be self-justifying and self-sustaining in terms of supporting narratives. So you look at this, and you look at that, and you look at that, and you have a complex story that ties them all together. But when you develop more familiarity with exploring the range of attention and letting it move into ranges that you don't customarily go to, like experiencing your field of vision as a whole. So you're just seeing everything you're seeing all at once. And what's that like? Go to everything you're hearing all at once. What's that like? And go to everything in your mind all at once. What's that like? That's very strange. And it's not strange, but it's very strange in the context of the habitual zooming in. And so then you can explore the zooming out and zooming in, and really just, and after a while you discover it's just like going like this, It doesn't, what's being seen doesn't change. It's what it is, regardless of how it's being framed. And so you get that it's always reality. You're always seeing reality. And the narratives don't apply, even as the narratives are maybe seen when they're occurring, because they're just more aspects of reality. They are true in their own terms, in their definitive terms.
Yeah, those narratives have a very isolative quality.
Yeah, it's sustained by this isolative kind of an attention habit. But when we develop a more flexible habit of attention to notice the range of attention, then we get more of a sense of the openness of things.
And it's all connected. You can see it's kind of connected.
Yeah, it's not that it's connected. You're always seeing one thing, so it's more profound than connected.
Yeah.
Disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strong. It's connected in a much stronger sense.
Yeah.
It's literally all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, because connected almost.
Connected implies there's still separate things.
Yeah,
that are connected.
yeah. That they're with ropes or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
That look was totally connected.
Yeah, it's more profound than connected. The word is identity. You're seeing identity. It's all identical, and the identity is you. The identity is the Atman. The identity is reality. The identity is God. It's what is, and you are that. And anything you're looking at that. Exactly. Just like when you're in a dream, anything you're looking at is the dream, i.e. you. So you can look over there in the dream, and look over there in the dream, and look over there, and you see the same thing. It looks different. It presents a different appearance, but it's the same thing.
One thing I've been noticing on and off for a couple or 3 weeks is that I really never see myself, the physical, psychophysical, emotional, whatever. I see parts of myself on the steering wheel. I see my wrists,
Right.
or I catch a glimpse of my right ear in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Or I feel an emotion. But in each of these cases, I project a whole being of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And that unification is a fantasy.
And that being is over against, in opposition to the real full view, which
Right.
would be 2 wrists and a windshield and some cars going by and
Exactly
sky and some seagulls.
Yeah.
That's the me.
Yes. And the wrists are you, the steering wheel is you,
Right.
the waft of music from a car driving by is you, the sun is you. It's all just snippets, vibes, little transient vibes of energy wafting through consciousness. And there's no coherence except for the grand coherence.
Or the projected.
Well, yeah. There's imaginary coherence. There's the fantasy of coherence, which is ego identification. And then there's the true coherence, or you could say the true incoherence, which is identity, which is that it all is this. And there's no you that can be found other than this. So if you bother to define that there's a you, then what that would have to refer to is this.
Yeah, it's like a collage. Parts of this
Yes.
is what I call myself. Notice Picasso was right.
Yeah. Sure, he was illustrating, and a lot of the those kinds of artists, impressionists and surrealists and all that, are again illustrating more concretely the dynamic flexibility of actual experience versus the imagined concrete coherence and relationality of ignorant experience. In reality, our experience of anything is constantly changing. What's this cup look like? Well, it depends. It's like it has no single appearance. It has infinite actual appearances, and I can't really even say what any one of them is. So there's just this astounding partiality. I mean, with reference to the imagination of a coherent objective world, in terms of our real experience, there's just an astounding partiality. You only see one side of the cup, for example. You only, so on and so forth. Like your example with our our psychophysical system. You know, you just get these little snippets, and then we fantasize that they're parts of a whole, but that's not the actual experience. And the experience is the only real objective fact. They're actually just these different energies wafting through, and they never come the same way twice. So even the fantasy that there is rests per se as a stable objective system is doesn't exist in that sense.
And all of our stories are around maintaining that psychophysical entity.
Yes, that's identification, that's ego, that's ignorance, that's delusion in the spiritual sense. All of
And now
those
just goes on creating this story, telling about the adventure of this non-entity
Yeah.
and his relationships.
This imputed energy, this imputed entity in its imputed situation. None of which exists only in the scantiest of evidence, and none of the evidence supports the interpretation that's being asserted.
When you speak about delusion, do you mean the resonant mode or other than?
No, resonant modes. Well, it's more an attachment to resonant modes or investment in resonant modes.
there's a sensation that sometimes comes, maybe in meditation or like that, that I think is probably best described or captured by the Vajra, the thunderbolt, the diamond thunderbolt, hardness, intense denseness and hardness, absolutely unmovable hardness of the diamond.
Yeah.
And, it's just a fleeting thing or an intuition sort of, but it's somehow descriptive of something.
Yeah.
Any comments on what that is all about?
Sure, that's this. That's the absolute real presence of this, which is absolutely solid, absolutely present, absolutely, invulnerable. The presence of the being of the present moment is, it's inconceivably, it's absolutely intensely present, unvaryingly so. And that is, all energy qualities whatsoever are versions of it. So when you see light or color, you're seeing that. When you experience sensation, you're experiencing that. When you hear sound, the presence of the sound, that's that. And it's absolutely it has absolutely no variation, no coming and going. It's completely, perfectly, absolutely, and eternally present. It is here, it is this. And it accounts for all this, and all this is it. And it can definitely be experienced directly as this incredible, adamantine hyper solidity, hyper, invulnerability, hyper stability. It's literally the presence of the divine, which of course is absolutely present.
Peter, is consciousness the whole thing?
Yes.
So, in the awakened state, what happens to consciousness? Because consciousness, I thought that consciousness was a subset of...
No. Consciousness is just a word for this.
Okay. Because I would think that seemingly the dream would stop when you...
The dream stops as being the dream stops as being anything interpreted as anything other than a dream.
Okay.
And a dream exists in the context of non-dream. So the world exists in the context of non-world. They're both right here, right now, and you're experiencing both of them, and it's all consciousness.
So
The experience of the world is consciousness, the experience of the non-world is consciousness. And they're both right here, right now. And calling them they're both is not accurate because there's not two things.
But there's no dream when one sees who they really are. There's no dream anymore.
Well, the dream stops being interpreted as being a real world, but it is interpreted as a dream, which is just present energies of consciousness.
Okay.
Because a dream is just a dream. A dream is just fleeting energies in consciousness. When you're in delusion, you think the dream is the real world that you're actually in.
Yeah.
It's separate from you.
Yeah.
And when you wake up within the dream, you experience, oh, this is just a dream. It's not really happening in any objective sense, but it is being experienced as aspects of consciousness appearing within itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the experience of realization. Which it's actually all experience. All experience is exactly nothing other than that. Realization is just noticing that fact. Realization is not a hair's breadth different from so-called non-realized experience. They're exactly the same thing. You just don't see what it is. It's like when you're in a dream and you think you're in the real world, and then you go lucid and realize it's a dream. There's no difference actually in the experience.
Yeah.
It's just seeing what it actually has been all along.
Right.
And you can see that at any time because it is that all along. It always is that. You know? The only thing that's present here is your experience. And manifestly, your experience happens within your consciousness. And manifestly, your experience is made of your consciousness, because how can something outside of your consciousness be perceived? It's being perceived because it's your consciousness.
Yeah.
So this is self-evidently the case. So the only thing that's here is your experience, which is your consciousness. You know, it always has been.
And it's all a dream.
Just notice it. Well, it's your consciousness. Whatever you call, what word you're going to throw at it is not important. But it's all your consciousness appearing to itself.
And it's just appearing spontaneously.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, like,
It's clear.
It's its nature to appear that way.
so you don't really exist.
Right.
It's just my experience that
Yeah.
is dreaming all that.
Right. And you don't really exist. Just your
Right.
experience exists.
Uh-huh.
But Susan doesn't exist. Peter doesn't exist. Your experience alone exists.
Mm-hmm.
Bay Area doesn't exist. Earth doesn't exist.
Right.
Galaxy doesn't exist. Just your experience exists.
That's pretty far out.
It's self-evident.
It is.
Right.
So,
Not far out at all.
Right.
Mhm.
It's kind of like you can just sit back and enjoy the picture.
Yeah. It's an amazing show. It's inconceivable. Who could imagine this?
You. But you are.
Well, that's probably a good place to knock off for the night.
What time is it?
9?
Is it?
Yeah. 9 on the west coast of America. Consensus reality
Good
time.
night, Jeff. Good night, Lily.
good night, Jeff.
Good night, Lily. Good night, Beth.
CRT, consensus reality.